Record.
We will call the Thursday, July 24th, 2025 City of Woodland Park Planning Commission meeting to order. We'll have a roll call.
Sure, Don DeZellem,
Present.
Ken Hartsfield,
Here.
Don Hoying.
Here.
Ken Kennedy,
I'm here.
Jared Newcomb,
Here.
our excuse me, our regular Chair Lee Brown is absent, and Vice Chair Larry Larson.
Present.
And then in attendance, we have CJ Gates, Senior Planner, myself, Karen Schmink, the Planning Director. Our City Attorney Betsy Stewart is via Zoom. And then I also have our permit tech, Amy Wolin, out there in Zoom land, who does our minutes for us. So thank you, Amy. That should be everybody.
And we all stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move now to the approval of the minutes for the June 12th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. I assume the commissioners have had a chance to review that minutes. Anybody have any comments or modifications to make? If not, I entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the June 12th, 25 meeting as presented.
I'll second.
You want a roll call vote?
We can do a roll call or we can just do a voice vote. Let's do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda are public hearings. We have one tonight. That item is item 4A, Base Camp Apartments, Conditional Use Permit Extension. A25-0116, a request by Range Development Montrose, EOX LLC, property owner, and Creighton Subcup applicant for an extension of the approved conditional use permit and site plan for 8 apartment buildings with 122 attached multifamily dwelling units in the multifamily residential urban zone. The subject property is a 7-acre parcel located at the end of Tamarack Parkway and is known as Lot 6, Tamarack Tech Park, filing number 5, City of Woodland Park, Teller County, Colorado. Before we begin the hearing, I'd like to offer a summary of the process that we follow for a public hearing. First of all, the chair reads the case into the record, which I just did. Next, we hear a presentation of the staff. Then the applicant has an opportunity to make a presentation. Then the planning commission asks questions to the staff and the applicant. And at that time, we open up the public hearing portion of the hearing. After all comments are taken in and none are offered, we close the public hearing. We allow the applicant to make a rebuttal of any comments that are made during the hearing process. Planning Commission then has an opportunity for any final questions. Then the Planning Commission begins deliberation, express opinion based on the evidence and findings. The chair encourages at that point a motion and a second. Any further discussion or opinions on the motion and the vote on the motion? And at that point, the item is not considered anymore. I'm gonna turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Hey Larry, before we do that, I wanna clarify the conditions of this, request for extension. I read through it a couple times, so I came to the conclusion in reading through the ordinance that the permit has expired. And as such, an extension would not be the appropriate, action to take. And because after it has expired, it would have to be essentially a new renewal or whatever word you want to use. In which case, as I understand it as well, the current ordinances would be applied at this point in time, and there have been significant changes, notably the water usage certification requirement. So I want to make sure that we don't shoot past that requirement and grandfather this in inappropriately if an extension is not the correct action to take at this time.
Okay, excuse me, sir. I apologize for jumping in. CJ will present a full report here this evening, and that is part of what we will cover is those parameters and how the code applies. And then, obviously, like per the chair outlined, we'll answer any questions you may have, but we need to get
Okay.
everything out on the table first, please.
Acceptable?
Acceptable to me, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other comments? Mr.
Perfect.
Geertz?
thank you, Chair. As the Chair said, this is a request by Range Development and Creighton Sukup for an extension of the approved conditional use permit and site plan for 8 apartment buildings with 122 attached multifamily dwelling units. The subject property is a 7-acre parcel located at the end of Tamarack Parkway, which is accessed off of Highway 67. On this current slide is the vicinity. On this slide, you'll see an aerial photo of the site. To the north and east of the subject property is Highway 67 and the reserve at Tamarack filing number 1, which is a single-family residential development. To the northwest and west, you will see the village at Tamarack Development and the practice range of the Shining Mountain Golf Course. Lastly, to the south is Lot 7 of the Tamarack Tech Park filing number 5, which is currently vacant. The subject property, which is outlined in yellow on the left-hand side of this slide, is zoned multifamily residential urban, and it's been zoned that since 2014. I just would quickly like to point out that according to City Code, the intent and purpose of the MFU zone district is that this land use designation is intended to accommodate attached residential dwelling units with residential density levels higher than SR, UR, and MFS districts. The maximum density of these dwelling units shall be 20 dwelling units per acre. These areas shall be fully served by municipal water and sewer and be located in areas that can accommodate projected impacts concerning traffic, pedestrian access, parks, school, commercial centers, and places of employment. In 2021, the owner at the time, Mountain Star Investments LLC, applied for a conditional use permit for a multifamily residential development on lots 6 and 7 of Tamarack Tech Park. As you can see here on the left-hand, on this slide, is the proposal consisting of 55 townhomes and 3 apartment buildings with a total of 167 dwelling units. In 2023, Mountain Star Investments LLC and Creighton Sukup submitted a new request that pertained only to Lot 6. City Council approved their proposal for 8 apartment buildings with 122 attached multifamily dwelling units on May 18th, 2023, by way of Ordinance 1450, Series 2023. This approval is in question tonight. On this slide is the approved site plan. The approval included 2 different building types. Type A, which is outlined in red, consisted of 72 dwelling units and 3 buildings. An apartment building type B, which is outlined in yellow, consists of 50 dwelling units and 5 buildings. Again, just to be clear, on this slide is a table outlining which was approved in 2021 versus the most recent approval in 2023. In 2021, the approved CUP was for a total of 167 units on both lots 6 and 7. and the current approval is for Lot 6 only, which includes 122 units. Expiration and extensions of conditional use permits are governed by Municipal Code Section 18.57.090, and that language here is on this slide. On May 15th, 2025, the city received a written request to extend the approvals associated with CUP SPR 2023-01 for 2 years. Since the CUP was initially approved on May 18th, 2023, the applicants have continued to work on this project. To date, they have submitted a final site plan, which is the construction documents, as well as grading and infrastructure permit requests. The permits and associated documents have been through multiple rounds of review with various departments within the city, but there are still outstanding issues that need to be resolved. This application met all noticing requirements and was referred to agencies listed here on this slide. Staff did receive one comment from Core Electric, which stated, Core Electric conditionally approves of the extension, but will require a meeting with the applicant to address grading, landscaping, and snow storage areas to meet Core's clearance and installation requirements. And staff also received one public comment related to this application, and that was the one printed there on your desks. And for the Planning Commissioner, Ken Kennedy, I did email that to you as well, so you have a copy of that.
And I would like to note that that comment came in after your packet went out, which is why you're receiving it this evening, and that it was not included in the packet. If we'd gotten it earlier, you would have been delivered to you that way.
As there are no regulations to assess, staff does not have a position or recommendation on this extension request. If the Planning Commission finds that the extension is warranted and recommends that City Council grant the 2-year extension of the conditional use permit and site plan, then the approving resolution should state that the development is still subject to all conditions and dimensional standards specified within the original approval. If this extension request is approved, the conditional use permit and site plan review entitlement will be extended an additional 2 years with a new expiration date of May 18th, 2027. And just to circle back to your question, Mr. Hoying, this extension did expire, or, was planned to expire on May 18th of 2025. We did receive the application to extend
Right.
on May 15th.
Right.
So, just prior to that.
So do you have more to finish, or do you want to?
No, that's my presentation, so I'm available for any questions you might have.
So I guess we'll start there. There are 3 conditions listed for an extension. A building permit has been issued and is deemed valid. I assume that's not the case.
No, a building permit has not
Okay,
been
fine.
issued.
I'm trying to be all lawyery, but I just want to be very clear.
That's okay. That's fine.
When no construction is required, that clearly does not apply. And then it says an extension has been granted past tense by the city council, which has not occurred by the expiration date. So
The application for the requested extension came in prior to the
Yes,
expiration
I
date.
understand.
That's typically the benchmark that the commission has been using for when a request or an extension request is reviewed and entertained and considered.
Yeah,
Um,
and
And then the other.
I've seen that before. I've never liked it, but it really didn't matter in the past because with no substantive changes to the ordinances, whether it's a new approval or an amendment or an extension, the end result's the same. We got the same process, the end result's the same, and so I've never felt the need to pump the brake on it, but because the ordinances have changed and now there's the requirement for detailed, verifiable, and authenticated documentation of availability connected to water source, et cetera, that's a substantive change. And so that should apply to this and all future proposals.
Hi, can I speak for a moment, please?
Yes, please. I mean,
Okay,
That's how I
so, yeah, so the thing is on the date of the application, the application for extension was submitted, that's, since it was submitted before the date it expired, it was submitted on May 15th, correct? And it Didn't expire till the 18th. So it is ripe for consideration underneath this ordinance, municipal code 18.57.090.
Just for everybody's information, this is our city attorney speaking to us.
Excuse me, yes, this is City Attorney Betsy Stewart.
Can you just walk that dog a little farther down the block? It doesn't meet any of the three conditions under,
They're asking for it to meet the third condition. That's basically the request in front of you, is they're asking to get, and you're the recommending body to city council. So they're ultimately asking city council for the extension so that they can carry forward and ultimately get their zoning development permits and building permits. The other factor that you all have considered in the past, in addition to whether or not has the application been received prior to the expiration date, is have they been doing any work on the project in the meantime? And so that was part of the information that CJ laid out for you, is that clearly they have been working on this whole proposal during the past 2 years. So those are the two things there. Yeah, so that's what I've got related to that.
And we can let the applicants speak on the work that they have done and kind of the problems and issues they've run into during their site plan process, so.
I guess I'm just, what gives us the authority to not follow the city code?
We are following the city code. It's underneath. First off, we need to let them present their side either way. And this is more of a conversation for a deliberation aspect of the hearing.
Okay. On the
Thank
next.
you.
I have a question. We are dealing with an extension for lot 6.
That's correct.
There is no request for lot 7,
That is correct.
so that particular lot now has expired.
Correct.
And no application for further extension for that, so it's null and void.
Correct.
Yeah, there's been zero activity on lot 7 over the past couple of years. Yeah, zero activity.
So lot 7 is not in question tonight.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other comments of staff at this point? If not, we'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Thank you, and thank you for all your time. My name's Kurt Sukup. I'm the developer, owner of the project. I wish I was here to tell you that we completed the project. Obviously, we ran into some serious headwinds that prevented us from proceeding. We started this project simultaneously with our project in Georgetown, which was 50 units. My 50 units in Georgetown is fully completed during this exact amount of time that we have been trying to start our project in Woodland Park. We ran into headwinds with Core Electric. I'll let my Creighton explain, because he was in detail trying to work through the process with Core Electric after months and months of issues with their attorney and their business group, and a estimated cost of $400 and some thousand to remove or move their feeder lines that is through our property. We decided to take a step back and reduce the density so that it wouldn't have an impact. So at this time, what we're trying to do, this density for this project has gone from 135 to 122 is where we were before. We're going to probably come all the way down to 100 units, provide more green space, provide an arborist to really go through the project and detail where to precisely place these buildings so that we both keep as much lumber and wood and beauty in the area, but also not have to deal with Core Electric and the costs that was going to incur for us to move their line off our property. And I would like to let Creighton explain. He was dealing with them on a constant basis for many, many, many months. And he has a full explanation.
Hi, good evening. I'm Creighton. Like Kurt was saying, I was working closely with our civil engineers and the core electric designers on trying to come up with a solution for some of the issues that came across. We worked very closely with CJ and rest of the city staff, planning departments on, our full site plan review and construction documents, looking at parking, snow storage, etc. The current density that we have on this approved site plan required us to do grading along Core's easement, which is along the Highway 67 property line. There was not a ton of grading, and we didn't really think when we were designing, no one really raised red flags about it, as it was just a plus or minus a foot and less of dirt that was being moved. Core Electric didn't want any grading going on. I think it was above 6 inches along their line. There was also some complications as their electric line goes in and out of the easement on our property. So we had to kind of navigate what that would look like and how we would be able to grade around and also move the line. It was also found out there was not one feeder line, there were 2 feeder lines. So the cost of moving this off of our property and closer to Highway 67 became very cost prohibitive. Core Electric wouldn't give us, based on the approval that you guys gave us in 2023, we were required to get a letter from Core granting approval and for us to be able to grade in their easement and on top of their lines, which they did not give. And they wanted the investment of us moving electrical lines to happen before they could grant this approval for us to be able to do a construction project, which we deemed also a risky move, just considering how things can change over time. This kind of triggered us to take a step back and look at the density, figure out how we can move buildings away from that property line and make it more of a livable site, reduce a little bit of the parking based off of the less density and not having these big retainment walls and landscaping issues along the Highway 67 property line. We're kind of busy this winter through construction and now are working on this redesign and finding the right project that fits into this multifamily site plan in Woodland Park. I'm happy to also take any questions from Planning Commission on kind of what the process we went through or the site plan or anything like that.
One basic question, what is it look going forward from here, time frame and whatnot?
We are ready to get started. We have had planned, we have significant amount of engineering costs that have already been put in, getting the design put together. We have all the architectural plans put together. We're just going to adjust the buildings and the locations of those buildings and reduce the density so that we can, I guess, accommodate Core Electric and not have the incredible expense that was required.
I think our goal would be to start construction in the spring.
Did you make any evaluation whether or not you should let the plan actually expire and begin anew?
We were just following the recommendation from the planning staff on how to proceed, and it was, in our understanding, it was the best path forward was to request an extension and then go back to amend the site plan that we've been working on, because we still don't have a full final site plan approval that we can build building permits from. But we've done a lot of work, parking, snow storage, utilities, all of that. So we won't have significant changes in that area. We're just trying to navigate it the best way possible.
When do you plan to incorporate lot 7?
Lot 7, we were planning on getting involved with Lot 7 as soon as we started breaking ground and had a construction loan to purchase that property. They had increased the price of the property. That's not an issue. We are waiting till we had building permits and construction. This is all, Lot 7 was really going to be just purely for recreation. We're trying to reduce the density to 100 so that there's a lot of trails and parks throughout this property, Lot 6. We did the same thing just in Georgetown. We built over 3.5 acres of trails and parks that we're just now in the process of donating to the town of Georgetown. So our thought would be, not that we have to donate anything, but we will create a similar type of environment in the Woodland Park project.
You anticipate that when you come back with your revised plans, amended plans, you will incorporate 7 at that time?
Yes,
I was a member of the planning commission when we first reviewed your project. And it was very important for us that those two lots be looked at together comprehensively. And there were many issues that involved both the lots. And you were very helpful in agreeing to allow that to happen.
yeah, the only reason it's not done right now is that I was waiting for my construction, get the construction loan to proceed. But that is a very important part of our trail system and part of our little, what we are trying to present in this community that we're creating. And I think that this lower density will be a significant benefit to allowing a real livable area instead of having a parking lot with just buildings.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant?
Well, I've heard a couple times that are you saying for lot 6, you're gonna reduce the density even further? Cause in our packet, we have that it's showing 122 units. And now are you saying you're wanting to take that down even further to 100?
Yes, we are going to bring that down below the 122 level. We need to do that, one, because the 5 buildings that are sitting there infringe on that location where CORE is concerned about. So we will bring the buildings in from there so that we do not have that issue. So if that's only 4 buildings, 3 buildings, we will currently design that so that it all is accommodating to the site. And I would imagine that will mean that we'll probably be down to, the 100 type units.
And if I may too, just to clarify as well, staff has had meetings with the applicant group and, they kind of presented what they want the future of the project to look like. So it was our recommendation that they just get what they have entitled now, get that extended. And then when they do have the construction documents or the general plan and their architecturals ready to go, they can submit that to us and it'll be a conditional use amendment process. So, if it sounds like they're pretty close to doing that, so I wouldn't be surprised if you guys, see the suit cups very quickly in another public hearing regarding that amendment process. But just as far as right now goes and the decision we're making tonight, it's just a CUP extension to extend what has previously been approved in 2023.
Just to clarify, so when there are modifications to the site, it'll come back to this body to review.
Correct.
Back in 2023, the property was already zoned multifamily urban.
Correct, yeah, so that's been zoned, that multifamily urban since 2014.
Any other comments, questions of applicant or staff? I have one more question, but it's not related. Are there other people online?
I have one other person that's shown up.
Okay. Typically, the public hearing, and if we have public involved that want to make comments. We try to ask the public to be concise in their presentations, not be repetitive. If we only have two people speaking tonight, and sometimes we actually limit the amount of time that's available for the public to speak. The two people here present, one on Zoom, one in the audience, desiring to speak, I would say, try to be concise again, but let's don't put a limitation. This council. Okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, with that, we'll open up the public hearing regarding this particular project. Mr. Weissman, would you like to speak first?
Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners, my name's Todd Wiseman. I live in Woodland Park. I urge you to deny the request for a 2-year extension of the conditional use permit for the base camp apartments. My argument hinges on a plain reading of our own municipal code, which unequivocally shows that this extension was not granted by the deadline and therefore cannot be revived. This, coupled with a clear lack of foreseeable due diligence on the applicant's part, makes the request untenable. Let's look directly at the language of our code, Municipal Code 18.57.090, which states, authority to issue a zoning development permit or building permit pursuant to the granting of a conditional use permit shall expire 2 years after the date of approval of the conditional use permit. The initial approval for this project was on May 18th, 2023. This means, without any ambiguity, that the permit is expired. The very next part of the code offers the only exception relevant to this discussion. Quote, except when one of the following conditions has been met, number C or letter C, an extension has been granted by the city. This phrasing, has been granted, past participle passive voice, indicates a completed action by the city council. It's not a request in process, but rather a request that has gone through the full review and approval by the city council and has been officially approved. Now consider the timeline of events. The applicant submitted their written request for this extension on May 15th. However, a request is fundamentally different from something being granted. The act of granting an extension requires a formal decision by the city council. Today is July 24th. You, the Planning Commission, are holding a public hearing on this request today. The city council's public hearing, where they would consider and potentially grant this extension, is not even scheduled until October 21st. Therefore, under a plain reading of the code, it is indisputable. No extension was granted by May 18th. The permit, by the clear terms of our own regulations, is expired. The extension is a means to prevent the expiration, not to revive an already expired permit. To approve this extension now, or later in August, would be to retroactively apply an exception to a permit that has already lapsed. This undermines the very purpose of setting clear expiration dates and established procedures. It creates a precedent that the deadlines in our municipal code are not firm, but rather flexible and negotiable after the fact. This decision could also open the city up to unnecessary litigation. Granting this extension, given both the expired permit and the applicant's failure in due diligence, would set a dangerous precedent. It would signal to future developers that our timelines are flexible, that lax planning is acceptable, and that fundamental site issues can be addressed years into the approval process. This erodes the integrity of our review process and sends the wrong message about Woodland Park's expectations for quality and accountability in development. I urge you to deny this extension request. Thank you.
Any members of the commission have any questions of Mr. Wiseman?
Thank you. Can I, this is with my written out, can I get it to you?
I think we already have a copy.
I made 5 copies.
Oh, the outline?
Thank you.
I need to keep one for the record.
Is that different than what you mailed in?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you.
At This time I'd like to ask the city attorney to address the comments made by Mr. Wiseman.
Yes, so just in general, I don't comment on perspective or, intangible litigation or even pending litigation. So as to that comment, I don't have, I have no response to that. So insofar as the deadline issue, and as your planning director previously said a moment ago, that we have traditionally gone from the date in which the application for extension was submitted, and it was submitted prior to the 2-year expiration. Then, I'm trying to think what else all he said. Oh, right now, this is not a final decision. What the planning commission is doing, if the applicant is asking for a extension before city council and city council has to grant it, the planning commission's duty tonight is to make a recommendation to city council whether or not this extension should be granted. So this is not a final decision tonight. This is a recommendation.
Since I'm kind of new to a lot of this,
And before you go
Okay.
too much further, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I don't know if your other person online would like to make comments or not. So I'm not sure where your discussion was going to go. So I apologize for
Yeah.
interrupting.
Yeah, I would recommend if you hold your question, we can let the other commenter go. And then when we get into discussion, deliberation, I can answer further questions.
Let's do that. Let's move on with the public.
Thank
hearing.
you, sir.
And the person that's via Zoom or
Yeah.
you
You-
desire to speak?
They may not, they may just be listening, but I want to make sure we give them opportunity.
Okay. What's the process for that?
So just ask anybody online wish to speak. Just checking in case you're having trouble with a microphone or something. Anybody online wish to speak? Does not look like it, but I just want to make sure we have that covered. So,
Okay.
it's from what I can tell that should, oh, I'm sorry, a hand did go up. So.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
Please introduce yourself and your place of residence.
Yeah, my name is Joe Fury, and I live in the Reserve of Tamarack, which is directly across the Highway 67 from this development. And all I'd like to say is I agree 100% with the first speaker. I think the city is starting to develop a track record of not following the wording of city code. And I think, it's very clear here that the extension has not yet been granted, and therefore, I agree with what the first speaker said. And the track record part I'm talking about is I came to the city with a request to enforce a city ordinance regarding lighting, permitted lighting, and I was told that the city doesn't consider or has their own interpretation of the wording of that ordinance. And I think our city needs to follow the actual words and not develop traditions or try and follow traditions like is being said today regarding this project, and actually follow the words. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Does any members of the planning commission have any questions of Mr. Fury and his comments? If not, if nobody is online wishing to speak, I will close the public hearing. We'll now have a rebuttal from the applicant.
I think that, I guess our direction was to get it in before the 18th. We got it into the 15th, thinking that, that is what was required by the town. And, I mean, we've had plenty of time, I'm sure, before that, to attempt to do this during our whole process and trying to go through Core Electric. We have been diligently and hardworking trying to get this project completed and get it started. And like I said, we did the same thing in Georgetown, started at the same time, and we have 50 units already completed and people living in them. So it wasn't like we were trying to delay anything. We were trying to make this happen and make this work. And we're now doing a major accommodation by reducing the density to 100 so that we can do this without a lot of roadblocks. And I think that it'll be actually a better project. It'll be less density and it'll really support this community.
And I also would just like to comment, I don't think we, as
Can't hear you there.
applicants, have,
We gotta,
Hold on, we're not getting your audio.
we have an interference we're gonna fix. Sorry about that.
can you hear me now?
No.
Hold tight.
Go ahead and try now.
Again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I just want to mention that, you know, we haven't, our intention is not to be negligent on this project at all. It just, it takes time going through the planning process, especially on this site with some of the complexities with, you know, the density and drainage and in adding a roundabout, et cetera, that we were working with the planning department on. You know, we also had a request from Mr. Weisman to improve our landscaping by adding kind of ranch style fencing along the property line on Highway 67, which we did implement that and request into our plans. So we have been working and also worked with him on in his feedback that he gave us that we're grateful for to kind of improve this project for everyone in the community.
Any further comments? No? Hearing none, we'll move to the planning commission. Any questions of the applicant or rebuttal? If not,
My comment was gonna be more on, I've heard a couple of different times that, well, traditionally, this is how it's played out. So is it allowed to kind of be open to interpretation when we're looking at the ordinance, or is it very much black and white, like this is how you have to do it? Because that's where, you know, just even in my own job, you see the guidelines, but there's wiggle room.
well, once again, I'm gonna let staff and the city attorney to address those comments. That's very, very good comments. But I will tell you that when Ken, and maybe Don both had extensions in the past. We looked at the date of submittal of that request coming through. Because we had this discussion several times on various projects, and we were concerned about that. And we thought a fair compromise was say, if you submitted before the deadline, and certainly that's what staff did, we would accept it as improper. And being able to do her.
And to go back what I said earlier, what I think is materially different, if the plan hasn't changed, if the code hasn't changed, then it's a bit of almost semantics, whether it's called an amendment, an extension, or a new approval. Because it goes through the same process, it'll be applied the same criteria. So to argue semantics of what we call it seemed somewhat unnecessary or non-value added, I'll say. But that's not the case here. There's been a substantial change to the code, which would apply a new criteria. A criteria we in this planning commission and city council just approved a few months ago, and first time it is to be applied. I don't feel at all comfortable skating past it.
So what was the date that new ordinance was approved?
April.
Excuse me, I have a comment, and I believe that the planning director can help me confirm this, but it's my understanding that when this development was initially kind of approved, everything went through, the water there was sufficient water, at the time. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Karen?
I can fill in a little bit more, Betsy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just don't have that application in front of me.
And I will weave this all together, I promise. So in the city regulations historically, when conditional use permits are considered, it's criteria number 9, where it says the proposed development and use shall be designed, constructed, and maintained with adequate water supply, wastewater disposal, solid waste disposal, air quality protection methods, and surface water drainage. So that criteria has been in the code for a very long time. I'd have to look at the citation for when that was first adopted, but probably decades. And so, yes, Mr. Hoyne, you're right that earlier this year, I don't remember the date, but it was like April-ish, when a new ordinance was adopted that added an extra criteria. That extra criteria for conditional and special use permits was not originally in the ordinance, because the recommendation of our city attorney was this criteria that I just read to you is already there and covers that. But the planning commission made the recommendation that we like belts and suspenders, so we want an additional criteria added. And so that is the change that you're talking about. And that's criteria number 12 to that list that says the proposed development shall require approval of the city that connection and availability of a water source exists that is sufficient to serve the needs of the proposed uses and structures. So the conundrum that I think you have this evening is the fact that we've already found that there was water, which was the board and city council made the finding that there was sufficient water for this project at 122 units 2 years ago. When they come through with an amendment request, that whole list, including the new criteria, gets reviewed at that point in time. But tonight they're asking for just the extension of what they've already had in place. So that's kind of the nuance of how I see that being applied. And I'm not the attorney, but I think that there may be some issues there in terms, and I'm not sure, exactly, but there may be some issues there with now wanting to apply a criteria that is very, very similar to one that we've already made a finding to.
It doesn't fundamentally change how I feel about it, but I would like to ask the question of the city attorney to make sure I understand at the time of amendment, which we're not doing tonight, but it's been suggested that an amendment will be forthcoming. Amendments or modifications of the conditional use permit and site plan shall be in accordance with procedure applicable to the initial approval as set out in this chapter. Does that mean that we apply the code as it was at the time of the initial approval, or the code at the time of the approval of the amendment? I'm just trying to understand.
So if there is an amendment, the code that is in effect at the time of the amendment is the one that applied. Planning director, do you mind to confirm if that is accurate the way that you all have done things?
I would say that is accurate, and to your
Thank
point,
you.
reading is the same procedure that applies. So basically, it's a public hearing process. So that statement you just read says this is subject to a new public hearing process.
Certainly the code at that time was.
Correct.
And the issue before you right now isn't whether or not there's sufficient water. The issue right now is whether or not this this extension should be granted or not.
Right.
Just to clarify, I think Don was alluding to. So if we get an amended application or site plan, the codes that we'll be reviewing will be the 2025 codes, or the 2023, or the 2018 codes.
It depends upon the day the application comes in the door. I know we've been working very long and hard on an updated land use ordinance. If that is not adopted and in full force and effect, that is not the one that gets looked at.
It's just, when do we snap the chalk line
On what?
on what version of the city code we apply? But
It's the effective, it's on the, when a new application or amendment is submitted or there's a change, it's the ordinance that's in effect at the time the application is submitted. And so the effective,
2026,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Betsy.
of course.
Any other questions, concerns, comments by the planning commission?
A comment, Larry.
Yes, Ken?
So we had two members of the public that were giving us some constructive criticism about the way the wording of in the code is and the way we apply it. The entire time I've been on the planning commission, we've been applying it the way we're applying it tonight. It's by the submittal date. I agree with your comment, Larry. I don't like the fact that the wording indicates something else. And I think we need to address that at some point and get the code to reflect what we're doing, so that there's no confusion. But I don't think this applicant should be involved in that particular discussion, and that it relates to their request. They're following a procedure that they were instructed to follow, that we've all been following. And so I don't have any issue with that, other than I would really like to not create these gaps in trust with the public. So I would like to address that at some point as a code revision or a policy revision on how we implement it. I think that would be appropriate.
And I agree with you. I think we have the opportunity right now. If as we go through the revision of the code, we should make sure very clear what our intent is.
I believe we already addressed that, but I will be double checking
I
that.
think so too. I can't remember.
Yeah, I would have thought we'd have caught that one.
So I have a hypothetical for staff. If the applicant needed to have a extension granted prior to the May 18th deadline, when would they, how much time would have to be allowed to meet that deadline? They have to submit in January?
I would recommend at least 4 months prior.
It's such a tough like deadline to put down on that, because we don't know, in December or January what our public hearing schedule is going to look like in July, August, September, or even May. So, it just all depends on number of applications we get. We've been doing the code review, which has been eating up a huge chunk of you guys' time. So, but like Karen said, that's our recommendation is 4 months.
And there could be hiccups and it could take 5.
Correct.
Yeah, we've had a meeting or two where, oops, we don't have a quorum. Too many, all volunteers.
And that
And
goes
great, it delays too.
as well,
So I understand why we do it the way we do it, to take some of the uncertainty out for the applicant.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to set up a catch-22 in our code. So when we consider a potential code revision, probably add put so many days prior, and if you meet that, and if it takes longer, then have some grace period so that they aren't in this limbo. But 3 days prior to submission was not a reasonable expectation that the city council could approve it in those 3 days.
Again, I'd like to
It's been
readdress.
the practice for a long time, Don.
I understand.
Yes, and I would recommend, you follow your common practice and what you've done in the past. And if there's an issue, while that really shouldn't be the part of this discussion here about what amendments should be made in the future, that issue or any qualms you have with the language, can be revised in an appropriate setting.
So Betsy, you don't have a conflict with us moving forward based on Mr. Wiseman's presentation?
Why would I have a conflict? I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the conflict is.
I think Mr. Wiseman gave a pretty straightforward argument that the deadline is not, what we're doing is not consistent with our ordinances. However, it may be our practice. So I just wanted to get a legal counsel's opinion on whether there is a conflict.
It's obviously up to you. The issue right now is historically, when we have an application for an extension of time, it has been considered as of the date the application was submitted. For purposes of consistency with past practice on the planning commission, to which at least 2 of your commissioners have provided information, this is how it's been done in the past. I would recommend following your prior procedures and staying consistent with that.
Does that answer your question, Ken?
Not as well as I'd like, but I do appreciate the input.
Any other comments, questions?
Just generally, from the time that the application's been received to the time that staff has processed it, what's kind of the running time on that?
Yeah, as far as the timeline goes, once we receive an application, we intake it and make sure it's a complete application. If it's a complete application, then we send it out for external review, external and internal review. Typically, 14 working days is that general referral period. Again, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's never less than 14, but on workload, there's some departments right now that are very overloaded, and our utilities director can't look at everything in the same day. But like I said, generally that's 14 working days. After that 14 working day referral period, if there's no big showstoppers in the comments that we receive back, then we schedule a public hearing. So, and again, depending on the docket and how many
Right.
items we have on your guys' agenda and your schedules, then we'll schedule the public hearing, in an appropriate manner. So, and then, with ordinances, then we have to do first reading with city council. That's 2 weeks, and then, 2 weeks after that is the public hearing. So it's a lengthy process.
So getting it right about now isn't unreasonable.
Very not unreasonable, yep. And in this specific instance, in between the time where the applicants submitted on May 15th until this date, I think we've had a total of 3 different meetings with them in person and on Zoom. So, we've been in constant conversations regarding this project.
And just to clarify another point, the water usage certifications come up. This has gone to Public Works and they did not respond with any comments. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I think it's important. I'm gonna tell the planning commission members, myself, that I intend to vote in favor of granting this request. And the reason I feel that is because we have set a precedent actually in the past by reviewing this, listening to the procedure that needs to go through, the timelines, so on and so forth. We thought that was only appropriate and proper. And I certainly can't remember what we're doing with our modified code in that process. But I do highly recommend that we do address that very carefully, look at that section again, and we feel comfortable with that section of the code before we recommend any changes to that. But I will be supporting the request.
I think one thing to be considered is that the applicant was told the deadline and they've acted in good faith based on that information, and to withdraw the application because of the other verbiage wouldn't be inappropriate for their procedures and operation. And it has been a policy in the past, which does need to be addressed, either to codify what we've been doing or to change our procedures moving forward. So that being said, based on the merits of the project and how Water Department has not made any comment concerning the new ordinances, I think we could move forward with approval on this.
Is that a motion?
No,
No. Okay.
I'm in agreement. You guys who've set a precedence, the applicant has followed the process that they understand. And, I'm comfortable with voting yes on it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with Ken Kennedy and Larry and just what all you guys have said. I don't think it's fair to punish this applicant because they were following what they need to be right, but I agree that it needs to be clearer in the procedure and how we apply that moving forward.
Ron?
Well, I've never been comfortable with it, but I've made my point clear.
Yeah.
I'll just point out that voting against this has no bearing on the merits of the proposal. My vote is strictly procedural.
Understood.
We have Ken online if he has any other.
Oh,
comments,
yeah.
too.
Ken, you want to comment?
We'll get to be the tiebreaker, huh?
I think so.
No, I'm fine. I'm ready to vote on a motion if somebody wants to make a motion.
Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Base Camp Apartments conditional use permit extension with all the conditions that were previously approved.
I'll second.
Any further comments on the motion?
Well, the only thing
I have one comment.
Oh.
We aren't actually approving anything. We're
Right.
recommending to the city
Right.
council.
Amended as appropriate, recommend approval to council to approve the Base Camp Apartments conditional use permit extension with
Oh,
the
Thank you.
conditions previously attached.
And I will second that.
I also think, do you want to consider saying the dimensional standards specified? I believe that's what planning believed was necessary, correct?
No,
Okay.
oh, I know what you're after,
Yeah.
yeah, that's at the end of our recommendation. In the staff report. So basically subject to all of the conditions and dimensional standards specified within the original approval.
Well, I'd like to amend my motion for the second time to include the dimensional standards and the conditions previously approved as recommendation for approval to the city council of Woodland Park on the Base Camp Apartments conditional use permit extension.
I'll amend my second again for that.
It's been moved and seconded. One more chance for any comments? If not, roll call, please.
Ken Hartsfield,
Yes.
Don Hoyne,
No,
Ken Kennedy,
Yes.
Jared Newcomb,
Yes.
Don DeZellem,
Yes,
and Chair Larson, please.
Yes.
It passes 5-1.
Thank you very much, Commission.
All right, good look, looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate your time.
The public hearing portion of our agenda is now closed. We'll move now to work session. Code review, project review and discussion. John, you want to lead us through that?
Sure. I'm getting organized here, bear with me.
Sure.
Ken, I'm about to email you something. CJ, if you could distribute these to the rest of the group.
Great.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my computer's being a little twitchy.
Portion of the night is done, so I'm just gonna be in the back and stare at you guys.
Take a nap.
Yeah.
Faces from the back. Okay.
All right, Ken, that should be hitting your inbox here momentarily, the handout that we just handed to everyone. Oh, yeah, we should probably do that too. So, let me kill this one. I just want to stop the cloud.